evening and welcome to the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. My name is Megan Whitman and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Vice President for the JCC. Thank you all so much for being here for tonight's extraordinary performance of Witness Theater, The Stories We Carry. I just want to take a moment and ask everyone to silence their phones and put them away. I promise you it will be worth it to have an undisturbed performance this evening. My own history with Witness Theater dates back to 2014 when the JCC first partnered with Selfhelp and UJA to bring this program to Eshel, the Eshel and Trinity school communities. For 5 years, I spent 2 hours every Tuesday evening listening to survivors, many who had never shared their stories before, and they did this in a room full of adoring teenagers who showed up as really powerful witnesses and supports for those adults. Friendships were created, and many have actually sustained in the decades since. In fact, I just had lunch with Rabbi Renee Feller, who was one of the survivors in our second year, just last weekend. And so tonight, as I welcome you here and stand in awe of those who are about to grace our stage, I also want to honor and applaud all of the past participants, adults and students alike, of this really extraordinary program. The JCC is full of gratitude for the work of Selfhelp, for their Witness Theater program, and we thank you for all you do year-round to support survivors throughout the city. It's now my honor to welcome to the stage Lynn Wolitzer. Lynn serves as a board member for both UJA-Federation New York and Selfhelp Community Services. So please join me in welcoming Lynn.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. On behalf of Selfhelp Community Services and UJA-Federation of New York, I would like to thank the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan for hosting today's performance of Witness Theater. This year's performance brings together 8 students from different high schools of New York and 3 incredible Holocaust survivors. The survivors' diverse experiences during the war and their lives today will be shared on stage tonight. Witness Theater is made possible through unique partnership between Selfhelp Community Services and UJA-Federation of New York, and this year has also received generous support from the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany, which is the Claims Conference, Carol and Carl Hess, the Miriam and Arthur Diamond Charitable Trust, and the Robert and Trudy Gottesman Philanthropic Fund. This unique and essential program, developed in Israel by JDC-Eshel, was brought to New York 11 years ago, as she was saying, by Selfhelp, which I think many of you know, the largest provider of services to survivors in North America. And it is an agency, as also was said, supported by UJA-Federation. New York is home to thousands of survivors and has the largest concentration of survivors in the United States. For most people, it is surprising, and it is also incredibly sad, that about 40% of those survivors are still living in poverty. Many are alone, and many are suffering with chronic illness and depression. While the total population of survivors is declining, the cost of their care is escalating as their needs become more complex. That is why in 2004, UJA-Federation created the Community Initiative for Holocaust Survivors, known as CIHS, which I am so proud to co-chair and also work with Selfhelp on. CIHS raises funds to provide survivors with compassionate care to address their extremely unique needs. Today, we are caring for survivors in New York, Israel, around the world, including in Ukraine. Projections indicate that the number of survivors who will require help of increasing intensity will not abate significantly until after 2025. That is why one of the reasons we seek to raise money on a multi-year basis is so that these types of programs can be planned ahead for. And we can all know that the services, the critical services that we are giving to survivors can be relied on year in and year out. A significant portion of CIHS funding is granted to Self-Help Community Services. Self-Help's compassionate professionals often serve as survivors' last living relatives. By offering specialized, culturally sensitive care throughout the New York metropolitan area, Self-Help ensures that survivors can live out their years with meaning, dignity, and a warm embrace of community. By being here today, all of you are now part of that community, and I encourage you to continue to find out the many different ways that you can continue to be involved, because caring for survivors is not just the work of one day a year. It's something that we all must commit to every day until the very last survivor turns to us for help. Now, I would like to introduce the person without which this program could not run itself here, and how it creates this incredible experience for both our kids and survivors, and that is Joy Radish. She is the drama therapist and theater director of Witness Theater.
Hi everybody. Thank you so much for braving the traffic and making it here tonight and joining us for the show. My name is Joy Radish. I'm a drama therapist. I've had the honor of facilitating and directing this group and the performance that you're about to see. So I want to take you in brief through our process so that you understand a little bit about what we're doing on stage tonight. So this group of 9 students of 3 survivors, whom we lovingly refer to as our adults, started meeting in September at Self-Help's headquarters on 8th Avenue in the boardroom. And we have a multi-tiered process. We started with getting to know you exercises with theater skills workshops, where the adults and the students learned about each other, about their lives, and we had one rule, which was please don't talk about the war, please don't talk about the Holocaust until a later date. So, after a few months, we transitioned into what we call our official story sharing process, and during that process, we broke up into small teams, usually 2 or 3 students per adult, and the students interviewed the adults about their lives, going chapter by chapter, often from before their births all the way through the present day. After these interviews, the students brought what they learned back to the full group, shared it with the full group, and we processed anecdotes, meaningful moments, important relationships together through drama therapy exercises. So that took us through the holidays. In January, I wrote a script, and in February, we began this rehearsal process where the students are stepping into the roles of our adults, their family members, ancestors, sometimes animals, and this is the play that you're going to see tonight. And each year, we begin not knowing what the play is going to be about, and as the adults begin to share, some themes emerge, and the story that we tell begins to take shape. In our group this year, our 3 adults were either infants or young children during the war. As they began to share about their childhoods and the war, there were spaces in each story where details were not known, where memories were comprised of fragments, images, or another person's narrative altogether. We learned from Gregory, Max, and Susan that some of the most important parts of their stories happened before they were born, through the experiences of parents, grandparents, ancestors who were often more directly affected by the war. We learned that some of these stories were transmitted non-verbally, through behavior, through body language, through what was known but was never talked about. And so we asked ourselves, what does it mean to have a story of survival? And we started thinking about stories differently and realized that some of our most important stories are stories that we inherit from others. Our group witnessed how powerful it was for the adults to recount the stories of their parents and to integrate them into their own greater narrative. The students aided in this process tremendously through their care, through their curiosity, and through their gorgeous drama therapy reenactments. So we hope that tonight's performance also inspires you to think about your own lives, the stories that you carry from people who are known to you, who might also be unknown to you, but who impact your legacy. Thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi there, how you doing?
Hello, what is a beautiful day.
What brings you to the park today?
This is the best place to people watch and to take photographs. A favorite pastime. What brings you to this park?
Well, I just come from speaking at an animal rights protest. I've been involved in that movement since the 1990s. And when I learned about the hidden cruelty and abuse of animals, it made me realize that all suffering and all life are connected. And that brings me to the memories of my mother's survival and my mother's stories of the Holocaust.
The cycle of life is all connected.
I think the question for us is not how can I, one person, make a difference? I think the question is what kind of difference you want to make. And what brings you to the park?
I came to drink a cup of coffee and to reminisce about when I was an activist too. Right nearby there was a church called the Washington Square United Methodist Church. It was a big headquarters for the anti-war movement in Vietnam. There was a peace center there where I used to do a lot of organizing. I lived nearby in an apartment on Thompson and Bleecker Street. It was quite a time to be in New York City.
My friend, you have a longer story in Washington Square Park than I do. And I worked for NYU more than 20 years. When I came to America, to be able to apply for different jobs was a wonder. There are so many choices here. Back in my country, you did what government demanded, especially if you were a Jew. The government said, leave Leningrad, go to Kazan. So we went. The government said, go back to Leningrad. So we came back and 12 of us lived in one room, but it was during the war.
Wait, your family fled to Kazan and my family fled to Tishkan during the war. That's where I was born, but I don't remember Tishkan.
I was also born during the war in a ghetto in Budapest. My mother had already been separated from the rest of her family. My story begins with her story. Even when I was young, I remembered her sorrow and her courage and her love. Her memories are my inheritance.
My story also not begin with me, but with my grandparents who moved to China looking for a better home. I have carried their story all my way to New York City.
My story started in Lublin, Poland, with many relatives who could not flee. I carried them with me, even the unknown parts of their stories.
There are so many stories
And secrets.
yet to tell.
Can we tell them?
Let me tell you a little story. When I was 16, I visited the State Russian Museum in Leningrad. One particular painting caught my eye. Vasily Perov, The Orphans in the Cemetery.
The freezing night. This little boy. It looks like he feels safe, but he holds on to his sister as if his life is at stake.
Like a flash, it came to me.
This is me! This is me and Samuel!
Baby brother, hold on tight.
It was 1941, during the siege of Leningrad. We were near the Luga line, where it was supposed to be safe from Germans.
Baby brother, don't let go. The wind is cold, but my legs are strong.
Gallop, my horse! Go, go, go!
My brother was 10, and I was only 3.
He brought me to safety. He carried me when I did not know I was in danger.
Kind Miner, it's me. Oh yes, it's me, Grandmother Sima, from the maternal side. If only you knew how dangerous it was. The decisions that happen in milliseconds make all of the difference. The decisions from even before you were born, Gregory.
The sacrifices we had to make, the distances we could not mend.
The comfort we have to provide, the mice we have to catch.
Our history, your history, was not a straight line.
These all of the people I carry with me now.
And we have a story to tell.
Now, Gregory, it is a miracle that you and your brother got born in Leningrad.
Rosa, are you going to complain about this again?
This is your grandfather, Gregory. You named after him. We were doing quite well for ourselves before 1917.
But then, the Bolshevik Revolution happened and became dangerous in Leningrad.
Let's visit my brother and leave Russia.
China?
So, in 1918, we emigrated and settled in Harbin. You should have seen my Chinese kitchen.
Meanwhile, we lived in Mogilev, Belarus, where there was plenty of anti-Semitism.
Like most Jews, we were restricted from moving to cities like Leningrad due to the Pale of Settlement.
Gregory, this is your grandfather Boru.
Grandson. So when the restrictions on us were lifted after 1917, we were free to move to the bigger cities, if we wanted to.
But I don't want to go back. We have peace in Harbin.
But Rosa, it isn't 1917 anymore, and the new economic policy says that Jews can open up their own businesses.
All right. But I was right. We returned to Leningrad, only this time we did not quite prosper.
We started a business making souvenirs. Your mother, Mira, came to work for us, and that's how she met your father, our son. We both died before you were born.
remember us.
Bobby, was it very dangerous before we left Leningrad?
Yes, Kindminer, you were too young to know. Gregory, imagine you are Leningrad. And we are the Germans.
Leningrad is ours to capture. I'll bring in troops from the north. You, surround them from the east. You, the west.
Leningrad, you are under siege.
We are starving. Disease spreads through the streets.
No one is immune from this danger. This is why you cannot play outside anymore.
So how do we manage? I work for the Soviet Army.
And I work for the state.
We both get ration cards.
For bread. In winter of 1941, I got a notice. My company is moving production out of Leningrad, and I'm ordered to move to Kazan immediately.
Will we live amongst the Tartars?
I must take as many of us there as I can.
Ay, the danger!
Aaron?
I have work. I must stay. Take the boys. Take your mother.
Winter of 1941. We say goodbye to father and begin the great escape from Leningrad.
Come, stay close. Careful, Mother.
We leave our apartment on the coldest day and make our way to Lake Ladoga.
The snow almost blinds me.
We climb into a large cart.
The ice seems very thin. Everyone huddle.
We travel through the night, kerplunk, kerplunk.
They call this the road of life.
Leningrad disappears behind us.
But the long journey is not over. We board a train and clamber into Stockholm.
The train moves south, then east, and long at last.
Kazan!
And so, we escaped the siege of Leningrad and made our way to a village on the outskirts of Kazan to our new home.
There's this very long and short building, made completely of wood. One room is ours. It is very cold.
There is very little food in here.
Mother, eat something or you'll starve.
If it is not kosher, I will not eat.
I do whatever I can to feed my family. I'll take whatever you have. Potatoes? Here. This is new underwear. Never worn, manufactured in Leningrad. Surely you can use this. Thank you.
I go to a small school with local children. Здравствуйте, меня зовут Григорий. Мне 5 лет, я из Ленинграда. In school, they give us carrots for lunch. We also have carrots for dinner. There's so many carrots in Kazan.
Carrots,
carrots every day. Carrots, carrots every way. Carrots, carrots, crunchy raw. Carrots boiled, soft and warm. Carrots, carrots, can't go wrong. Carrots, carrots all year long.
Only I prefer mice to carrots.
Muska, cat of Kazan, my best friend.
Someone has to keep this home free of pests and rodents. Plus, you need a protector.
And with Muska sleeping by my head, and my grandmother Sima always watching over me, I felt mostly safe.
We lived in Kazan from 1942 to 1945. By the end of the war, Samuel was 14 and Gregory was 7. My husband stayed in Leningrad and reunited with us on May 8th, 1945, V-Day.
Father? Is it really you?
Then, my company ordered production back to Leningrad.
Ooh, I hear the mice are big in Leningrad.
Can we take Muska with us, Mother?
Of course, Muska's part of the family.
We packed up our Kazan life and boarded a cargo train bound for Leningrad.
On the train I see green and brown countryside, crystal blue skies. We stop in small cities. Muska, look! Muska, come back before the train pulls away.
Gregory, there's just so much to see in this world.
Wait till we get to Leningrad.
Leningrad. There are so many more mice here than in Kazan. More work for Muska.
When we returned, there were many reunions and many losses.
Old places we had loved, destroyed. Our old apartment, gone.
We met some of our cousins for the first time and got to know them well.
In fact, when we returned, 12 of us lived together in a single room.
Plus me.
Of course, Muska.
Leningrad! Let the grown-ups worry. We do not have many things, but I have a ball. Давай поиграем.
Stupid shit!
Mother, today some kid called me a Żyd. But we're just regular Russians, yes?
Oh, Gregory, we're not just regular Russians. We're Jewish.
Oh. I'm a Jew. Time passed and I grew up. Our family moved 3 or 4 times to different rooms in Leningrad. And as for me, I started out as a mediocre student. But I graduated from high school with top honors and entered the Leningrad Institute. Within 5 years, I became a motion picture engineer. But this is not as interesting as some other parts of life. Like shopping for groceries. Excuse me, where's the produce section?
There.
You're so helpful, thank you so much. Excuse me, miss. I could use your help. Is this bread fresh or stale?
Why, I think it's fresh. Just feel it.
Yes, fresh, I think. Fresh bread is hard to come by these days.
It's true.
We were married within a year. Yelena, my love. We made the best life we could as Jews in Soviet Russia. Our daughter Anya was born in 1967. Yet, institutional anti-Semitism was everywhere. For example, if you wanted to apply for a new job, it was, sorry sir, nothing is available.
Kind Miner.
Bubby?
Our history has never been a straight line. There's a better world out there for your family, a place with more possibilities, where you could be safe as Jews.
If Anya and I stay, nothing changes. Yet, if we go, my heart breaks thinking of this.
Let us think practically. Our love will not change whether or not it is recognized by the state.
The U.S. would certainly be better for Anya's future.
For all of our futures. To make my wife's and daughter's immigration to the US less dangerous, Yelena and I got divorced. You see, this was 1980 and Cold War tensions were thriving due to the Soviet-Afghan War. I worked for the military department, and when I appealed to them, they said,
No way! We forbid you to go to the US. You know too many secrets.
guess the most important secrets I knew? No secrets. I waited, I worked.
Then the wonderful Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, opened the gates of Soviet Union and allowed Jewish people to immigrate elsewhere. I jumped at this opportunity. Since I had wife and daughter in New York, I was granted to entry to United States.
My brother. Take good care of yourself.
I flew to JFK in 1988 and was welcomed to my Elena and my Anya, who was now 21 years old. She was so beautiful, I couldn't hardly believe it. Elena and I got married again pretty soon.
This time it will be forever.
Here in New York, I'd been brought to safety again and was reunited with my family. So you see, our love wasn't straight line. It took a lot of wits, wisdom, and skill to support each other. For when I came to the United States, I absolutely did not speak English, and it was my daughter Anya who helped me to get my first job.
The interview with Magnatech is happening right now. Я не знаю, что сказать.
Father, don't worry. Just repeat after me.
Hello? Yes, good afternoon.
My name is Gregory Gelpern.
My name is Gregory Gelpern.
Let me tell you about my professional experiences.
Let me tell you about my professional experiences.
I would be so happy to work for your company.
I would be so happy to work for your company. I got the job! I got the job!
We love you, Gregory.
I love you all so, so much.
At a certain point, the past becomes larger for me than the future. I cannot leave those memories alone, or they do not leave me alone, because within them live the past, within them I feel at home, and forever remain my mother's child. I long to go back and recreate in my imagination what my mother's life, what our life would have been. I am connected to that past because it was taken away from me. My mother's first life, Sopron, Hungary, 1932.
To my future daughter. Today, when I got home after gymnastics and piano and sewing, I drank my first cup of real coffee. It made me feel all grown up.
I think I know why you're really writing.
This is my sister, Margit. She's beautiful and musical and...
I know who you have a crush on.
Please don't tell father. My father, your grandfather's hardware business, is doing well. We have a garden in front of our house.
Life has been good to us.
Papa, Hungary, 1940.
Dear future daughter, guess what? I married Henrik Weltner. I moved to the town of Papa. He comes from a good family, Orthodox, just like mine. What's more, I'm pregnant. If it's a girl, we will call her Mary.
My older sister.
Such hopefulness. I would like to revel in it.
After 5 years of a happy marriage, Hitler came.
Papa, Hungary, 1944.
Henrik was taken to a forced labor camp. I hear other families in the Budapest ghetto. My sister Margit and my nephew. I pray they don't get placed on those trains. As for me, Mary is 3. And like in a dream, Henrik returned to me for one night. He leaves, and I'm pregnant with you. I keep my head up.
My mother's brother-in-law, who was head of the congregation in Papa, put my mother on a special Zionist list, sparing her the fate of Auschwitz.
My belly grows, my 3-year-old frets. German soldiers surround the camp like a human wall. In summer, beneath the Budapest sun, we slept outside on the ground. They say we are the lucky ones.
I was born in that internment camp in July of 1944.
They could try to take my dignity, but I'm a mother. I eat so they can eat. I'm a mother. As long as my heart beats, I'm a mother.
One morning, when I was a week old, my mother placed me in a basket on the ground of the inner courtyard so that she could work inside. A German officer standing on a balcony flicked his cigarette butt into the yard and my pillow caught fire. The shock of seeing me on fire stopped the flow of her milk. I was rushed back to the hospital where I was born with 3rd-degree burn. They smeared me with Vaseline. My mother gave me transfusions of blood and spent her nights waking up every few hours to rotate my head from side to side so the damaged skin on my neck would not harden into scar tissue. I survived the burn because my mother could no longer nurse me. She would chew on peas and beans and put the softly chewed food into my mouth.
Mary on my right, Susan on my left. Get us through the night. I pray for food and water. I'm a mother.
In November of that winter, they moved us from the internment camp into the Budapest ghetto.
Broken glass, streets filled with rot and waste. High snow, no heat, no room. I'm a mother. My 2 girls. I have no milk. I give them my blood, typhoid and disease.
The Russians liberated the surviving Jews from the ghetto in January of 1945. My mother staggered out into the daylight, broken and hungry. And then I heard that my mother's childhood friend, Tilda, ran into her on the streets of Budapest.
Alona? Tilda, we survived. We have no place to stay.
Tilda took my mother and I into her home.
I survived, but my sister Mary died from infectious disease.
My Susan, we will be all right. Let's go home.
My mother took me to the town of Papa, to the house she shared with my father. But there was no hearth to return to. She learned that Henrik had died during forced labor. As for her parents in Sopron,
Father died in the ghetto. Mother, Auschwitz.
her beloved sister, Margit, and Margit's son,
Auschwitz.
We stayed in that house for 2 years. Then one day, as my mother was sitting on a balcony, someone familiar walked by.
Why, Ilona? I remember when you were still a schoolgirl.
Arpit Steiner? Hello, where are you going?
I was on my way to a wedding. Alone.
I understand aloneness. I lost my whole family in Auschwitz.
As did I. Do you really? How are you managing this? I remember you so well.
Well, that man never made it to the wedding that day. Instead, he courted my mother, he married her and adopted me. And we moved to a large house in Koprovad, his hometown.
Abundance. A house with gardens. A washerwoman. A nanny for Susan. 1948.
my name is Susan Steiner. This is my mother, this is my father, and this is my new little sister, Miriam. It's wonderful to have a sister.
Susan, come. It's time for supper. 1951, post-war Hungary. How long will this abundance last?
In 1951, the Russians seized our property and took all of our things. The nationalization of Hungary meant that anyone who prospered was vulnerable, especially the Jews. My family left our home and all of our belongings in Koprovad and moved to a one-bedroom apartment in Budapest.
Good Shabbos. Be careful on your way to school.
Mary, remember, don't write during classes today.
Why not?
It's Saturday, and, you know, we're Jewish.
But the other kids write on Saturday.
We are not the other kids. October 23rd, 1956. I am 12 years old. The people rise up, demanding freedom from Soviet oppression.
Freedom! Revolution!
War in the streets, students shot dead. The occupying Russians retreat. I walk through the streets. All is peaceful. November 4th, and they return.
Susan, come!
Pack whatever you can.
Why?
We're leaving Hungary.
But where will we go?
There are better places in this world to be Jews.
But I didn't get to say goodbye.
We leave our apartment and get on a truck. We drive out of the city to a neighboring town. Then we board a bus to the Austrian border. They leave us at the edge of a forest. We set off on foot. We shuffle in secret. We cannot look back. We cannot back down.
Step by step on the forest grounds.
Without any compass, without any plan, suddenly, gunshots.
The Russians! Behind us!
We run, lost, we wander, we pray, we cry. Then suddenly, before our eyes, a little old lady appears in the woods, carefully gathering firewood. She promises to help when her job is complete. She says,
Follow me. Follow me.
We follow her from forest to village, and before we can blink, she disappears.
Impossible!
An angel sent by God.
We made our way from that small Austrian village to my mother's cousin in Austria. The Austrians were kind to us. They knew we were refugees. We were housed and cared for in a summertime children's camp outside of Vienna.
We stayed in bungalows. It was fun.
As political refugees, we finally had choices to make. We were given invitations to Australia, Israel, Canada, and the US.
Things are unstable in Israel, and I cannot risk that for our girls. New York! And so we waited to get processed in an Austrian EP camp. Thank goodness it was not like the Budapest ghetto. Still, other refugees grumble about the Jews. One can escape communism, but one can never escape anti-Semitism.
We flew to New York at the end of 1956, Christmas time. I remember the plane circling the Statue of Liberty before we landed. From a DP camp again in New Jersey to my mother's cousin's home, to aid from Jewish family services. We were sheltered and fed. Eventually, we settled in Washington Heights.
So we begin again.
My mother first worked as a seamstress. She attended Hunter College for English and accounting, and then found a job as an accountant at a real estate office. In the meanwhile,
Oh God, it's not like this back home in Budapest. American teenagers are strange.
Try it.
The girls just talk about boys, boys, boys. But what about studying?
Things are so different here.
Susan, how was your day?
Okay, Mom. Sometimes I think I'm on a different page than the other girls.
Don't worry too much. You will find your way. Time for supper.
And I did find my way. First to Hunter College, then to Israel for 6 years. I fell in love and got married, became a social worker and the mother of 2 amazing girls. I returned to America and became a psychotherapist and an animal rights activist with a growing curiosity to comprehend and document my family history.
My mother was reticent to revisit the past. However, in 1992, after 36 years, I took her back with me to visit Hungary. Together, we revisited her first life. She and our beloved nanny spent tearful and poignant days reliving their shared history. They traveled back in spirit to Kapovar, to the place of comfort that is no more, wanting to go home and wanting to heal. When my mother died, my sister and I discovered pieces of writing that I believe she meant for us to find. One was a love letter dated 1946 from her sister's husband who survived. Here it is, paraphrased.
Dear Ilona, so much tragedy has come upon our family. The loss of my wife, your sister, Margit, and my son is incomprehensible. Yet we must prevail. If you will have me, I would like to spend my life with you and with Susan.
No, I regret, but I cannot. I can never take my sister's place. Margit, sometimes I wonder.
Mary, sometimes I wonder.
Why did I survive and you did not?
Why you and not me?
But I did survive.
I did survive.
I experienced the worst of humanity. I loved with my whole heart. I started over again and again. I made a good life.
And this is why I tell our story.
I have become the repository of my mother's history. The survivors in my family were silenced by the Holocaust. Those who perished were denied a future, but I will not deny them their past. The past is never dead. It's not even past. While we live, the Holocaust lives.
Hi there. My name is Max Green. and I live in the Bronx with the love of my life. I heard about Witness Theater from my social worker and thought it would be a great opportunity. To my recollection, I haven't experienced much anti-Semitism in my own life. I'd like to tell my story, but I've never tried to before. I don't know where to begin.
Well, to start, we had lots of adventures back in the 1960s and early 1970s, like when we went to Israel after we quit working at Uncle Fisher's bakery.
Kibbutz was so much more interesting than boiling bagels in the Bronx. Say, who are you?
I'm you, Max Green, just a little bit younger. Remember when we went to Copenhagen? We called up our Swedish friends who we met at the kibbutz.
Bjorn, listen, I'm in Copenhagen, and I don't know where I'm going next.
My American friends, come join us in Malmo. We could use your help with organizing the movement.
I ended up staying in Malmo for over a year. I lived in the anti-war movement headquarters, and I even had a Swedish girlfriend.
It was a freewheeling time.
But it wasn't always. When my family came to New York in 1951, we lived on West 107th Street. My father tried sending me to the nearby Yeshivah. The rabbi told him,
My son is not yeshiva material? Max, you will go to public school from now on.
So I went to PS 165th on 109th in Amsterdam, and I got into a lot of fights.
Get out of my way, kike!
Who are you calling a kike? There, give me your lunch.
Hang in there, kid. There's still so much we don't know yet.
Father, why was I born in Uzbekistan?
Do your homework, Max.
Why did we leave Poland?
There's nothing to know.
Mother, what happened to the rest of our family?
Father didn't want to talk about it much, but every so often he'd share a little bit.
You know, when we were in the displaced persons camp in Hofgeismar, you used to sing and dance for the troops, and they loved it. They paid you in chocolate and candy. Then, when we finally came to this country in '51, we were on that boat for over a week. Everyone was sick and throwing up, except for you.
How did we get to the DP camp, Father?
I need to get back to work.
My name is Max Green. I was born in Uzbekistan. Why won't he tell me more?
Maybe because there was a lot of loss.
Who knows our story?
Tola, our younger sister, knows a lot. And once, towards the end of his life, our father did an interview with her in Las Vegas.
But what about us? We need to know the story. It's our story.
Maybe I'm the one who needs to tell it?
Yes, tell it.
It's time, Max.
Will you all help? All right, let's start.
Before the war, 40,000 Jews lived in Lublin, Poland.
My whole family lived there and in nearby towns.
My parents were both tailors and newlyweds. Then in 1939,
the situation in Lublin is not safe. The situation in Lublin is not safe. The situation in Lublin is not safe.
We must get out before they get us.
my father, his parents, his Aunt Paula, and my mother prepared to go somewhere in the Soviet-occupied part of Poland. My father once told me he made a plea to my mother's family.
We must get out before they come for us.
But Lublin is our home.
I beg of you, for our future.
No.
They left Lublin and went east to Soviet-occupied Poland. Since they were not citizens of the city, they were not eligible for a real apartment.
Sleeping on benches will not do for the winter. I'm cold.
So you want us to go back to Lublin?
Well, the Soviets gave us one choice. Go back or go east. Maybe there's more opportunity in Russia?
Go east.
Welcome to Kursk, a city in the Western Soviet Union, far enough away from our troubles in Poland. Is it paradise? For a Polish Jew to be able to get work and shelter during World War II, it is paradise enough.
And what is your trade?
I'm a tailor.
I'm also a tailor.
I work with leather.
You stay. We do not need leather work in Kursk. Find somewhere else to live.
My son, I will call for you. Go. Be safe.
So my grandparents and my Aunt Paula left for a nearby town, while my father and mother moved to the bottom floor of a factory. They worked there by day.
I do not mind this break from my in-laws.
The living quarters are tight, and our neighbors always squabble with us.
Don't mind if I squeeze between you Jews.
But then, one day, he left.
We have an extra bed, Rivka.
And with that extra bed, my father sent for my grandfather and brought him back to Kursk. Soon, he brought back my grandmother, and my Aunt Paula too.
Today at 4 a.m., Germany attacked our country despite a pact of non-aggression between the USSR and Germany. Responsibility for this attack falls entirely upon German fascist rulers. The government calls upon you, citizens of the Soviet Union. The enemy shall be defeated.
Me! Take me! I'm more than ready to fight!
Now wait a minute, Ostergren. You can't just up and leave while we're supplying our men with uniforms. You are my best tailor. I need you here, in this factory, in Kursk.
Somehow, each time my father was drafted, they released him.
The situation in Kursk is not safe. The situation in Kursk is not safe. The situation in Kursk is not safe!
But where is it safe?
There are eastbound trains leaving every day.
And where will we go? China?
Tashkent!
No, I won't go with them. I want to stay with you here in Kursk.
It's not safe in here, Rivka.
But Oscar, our future. Okay, I will go. For the future.
So my mother and my grandparents left for Tashkent, while my father stayed in Kursk making uniforms. This could have been a last goodbye. But then...
Who wants to get out of Kursk? The situation is dire. I have no more work for you.
Sir!
Where to, Ostergren?
Tashkent.
My father put on his finest pants, his best boots, and set off on the most important journey of his life. I wonder what he felt.
I went to the station and boarded the train. Traveling.
Is Tashkent even real?
Every few hours we pulled into a station, somewhere east of Kursk.
Will I be detained?
I got out, purchased a sandwich.
What if I never?
The train starts again.
My wife, my future.
The train stops.
Oscar Grin!
Schleumann? Husband of Aunt Paula?
Oscar, come with me to Siberia. It is better for Jews in Siberia.
Schleumann, do you hear me? Our family has gone east, and we must find them.
Oscar, don't be foolish. Do you know how many thousands of Polish Jews have gone east? You are looking for a needle in a haystack.
No, I cannot come with you to Siberia. Goodbye.
Days pass by. Cities pass by.
I may never.
And then, something extraordinary happened. Brother, look!
It's Oscar Grin!
Oscar Grin from Lublin!
Twins from Lublin? What are you doing here?
Question is, what are you doing here?
You will never believe this. We just saw your parents and your wife.
Oh yes, at a station, many hours east of here. The one with all the tracks. Keep your eyes peeled, Oscar.
With his eyes glued to the window, my father rode east. Yet at each station, he saw nothing familiar. Day turned to dusk.
This is the longest night of my life.
But then one morning, the train stopped at a big station with a lot of tracks.
Do my eyes betray me?
Am I seeing things?
Oscar?
The future.
The family had been waiting at that station because they did not have the correct papers to get into the city.
Maybe it was an act of... We will never know.
We stayed in a town near Tashkent until the end of the war. We survived on little food and water. You were born at home in April 1942, and Toba was born in 1947 in the DP camp in Holocaust.
And did we ever find out what happened to the rest of our family, to mother's side in Lublin?
I have to go work. Go live your life, Max. It's a big world out there.
So we did, kid.
Did we ever find out what happened to the rest of our family in Poland?
Yes. Everyone, my mother's family, that lived in Lublin were killed. No one else made it out. A few years ago, though, our daughter, yes, we have a wonderful daughter, Becky, asked me,
Dad, will you go to Lublin with me? I want to see where our family is from.
So we flew to Poland and walked the streets to honor our relatives. There are very few Jewish people left in Lublin now. It was a very important trip.
Thank you, Dad.
I'll tell you something else about our future. When I lived in the Greenwich Village, I used to hang out in Washington Square Park. One day, I saw the most beautiful sight my entire life. Our future wife, Lowell. She had just moved from Missouri.
Say, can you help me? I seem to be lost.
Why, I'd be happy to help. And since you're new here, why don't I show you around the city? This was another important part of telling our story.
This is a whole life story. A story filled with determination.
With hope.
And with love.
My name is Max Green, but I was born as Mendel Grin in a town near Tishkan in Uzbekistan in 1942. My family fled there from Lublin, Poland to escape persecution by the Nazis. My mother was the only person in her immediate family to survive. I grew up in a DP camp in Germany where my sister Toba was born. We came to the United States in 1951, and that's just the beginning. I carried the stories of my father, Oscar or Usha, my grandfather, Yankel, and my mother, Rivka.
I carry the burden of and gratitude for my mother's survival. Her courage inspires me, and her legacy has shaped my life and what I have become.
I carry the story of my parents and grandparents and how they could survive very difficult time.
I carry the stories of my grandparents. Their stories inspire me to learn my family history and share them with the world, as we have done here tonight.
I carry the story of my great-grandmother Gizzy, who survived the Holocaust, and the stories of the entire rest of my family. They inspire me to be proud of who I am and what I believe in.
I carry the stories of my parents, Robin and Thomas, who remind me every day what it is to feel loved. Listening to their stories of adventure, love, and hardship, I've learned what it is to be a friend and to be human. They are my home, and I hope to reflect that same warmth wherever I go.
I carry the stories of Rose and Charles, Jack and Min, Nat and Nettie, Louis and Lillian, Bert and Sandy, Neelan and Carolyn, and Debbie and Jason. From an early age, I was taught the importance of family. My family has taught me what matters most in life. Their stories impact me and inspire me to continue to define what my role is in meeting my covenant with God.
I carry the story of my friends and family. They inspire me to be strong, intelligent, and brave, and impact my decisions as well as the way I walk through life. Their stories have become a part of me.
I carry the stories of all my ancestors before me, from all across Europe and before, who fought to keep their narratives their own. Now, I live for them and lead my own path, freed by their actions and allowed to choose my own tale. I do it for them so that none of their efforts go to waste. I do it for them so that their hard-earned legacy is continued and strengthened and carries on into the future.
I carry the stories of my parents and friends. I think that all of them have done great things and that the world could learn from them. I will make sure that their moments of joy, fear, anger, and sometimes sadness won't be forgotten.
Between the stills of your photographs, I find parts of it I can understand. Everything about who I am is on your camera.
As our ensemble gets set, and I just want to find a microphone. Thanks so much. Okay, thank you so much again for coming to our performance, everybody. I'd like our ensemble to introduce themselves to you. So students, if you'd say your names and the school that you go to, and adults, you can say your names.
Real quick before everyone leaves and before I introduce myself, can we just give one really big round of applause for our amazing director, Joy? We cannot do this without her. What an incredible performance this was. My name is Joshua Glazer, and I go to Avenues the Word School.
I'm Stella, and I go to Ramaz.
I'm Raphael, and I go to Nest Plus M.
I'm Brett Glasser, and I go to Dwight Englewood.
I'm Elisa, and I'm going to German International School.
I'm Sophie, and I go to Ramaz.
I'm Edwin, and I also go to German International School.
Hi, I'm Riley.
I'm Gregory Gelton. I'm still Gregory Gelton.
Hi, I'm Susan Collette, and I wish I was going to one of their schools.
I'm Max Green, and thank you for coming.
Okay, so if you have a question for any particular member of our ensemble or for any of our adults, you are most welcome to ask, and just give a wave of your hand, and Anya, our program director, will bring you the microphone. So, is anybody ready with a question, with a comment? We've got a question up towards the back of the house.
You guys did a great job, and you've done a wonderful job telling stories, but I'm curious what lessons the students have learned from the stories that they've told tonight.
So the question is, what lessons have the students learned from the stories that you've told tonight? Would anybody like?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned is that there are so many stories that we still don't know. And you know, when I first started the Witness Theater, I always found it very surprising that stories like this hadn't yet been told to the world. And I think it just goes to prove that we still don't know what really happened, and we still need to know what happened. So the programs like Witness Theater are really the perfect way that you can do that, and to really get the full story from start to end, which I think is the lesson I've learned.
Thanks, Josh. Does anybody else want to answer that question?
I think a big thing that I've learned, especially in this program from our adults, is that when things go wrong in life, you just have to pick up what you have and you have to begin again. And I think it's very prevalent in their stories, and it's also something that I think we can all take with us. So.
I have a question up here.
Right up here.
Oh, yeah.
Just a casting question about your ensemble. Were they already an ensemble, or did you cast looking for particular characteristics and background for each of the kids?
That's a really interesting question. I think it was a matter of students who were attracted to certain stories. That was one aspect of it. And then the other part, some of it was about efficiency and making sure that everybody could carry a story and have an important role. And seeing as we have this ensemble of 9, and they probably played 40 characters, each of them held an incredible amount of purpose and did wonderfully. I don't know if that answers the question entirely, but the show was written in January, and then it kind of was organically cast. We don't do auditions.
Everybody did a great job. Thank you.
Thanks.
We have some more questions.
This is for Susan. I'm a student at Hunter Elementary School, and I believe it was also a sign from God that I saw the president of Hunter College today, and they asked us to reference if there were any stories from Hunter that we could share, and I think they would love to hear your story, and if you would ever love to share it with them, I think that'd be beautiful.
I would like to ask the younger generation, what was the hardest part for you to accept and to handle?
Does anybody want to answer that question? What was the hardest part of this process?
Just trying to understand what all the adults went through, because it's something that we're all very privileged and grateful that we don't have to go through that hopefully in our lives. So I think just empathizing with the adults and trying to understand what they went through when that's never happened to us.
I think that there are so many characters and so many emotions and so many things that they go through. So having to play all those characters and feel all those things, because we told the stories of 50 years in 20 minutes, and that's a lot for a person to go through. So I think trying to understand really what they went through and then convey that was kind of hard, but it was also inspiring because we got to understand it better than we would from just hearing it.
For me, the hardest part is to say goodbye to this bunch of kids. We did such a wonderful job. Thank you.
You have one more question over here.
First of all, thank you. It was a 2-handkerchiefer for me, so I really appreciate it. And secondly, what's been the reaction of your friends when you were telling them you were participating in this program, and did ask you why, or what impact did you think you had on your peer group?
It's actually quite interesting because at my school, they announced it to our whole grade, oh, Josh was participating in this thing, it's so great. People come up to me what do you mean you're doing a play about the Holocaust? Isn't that terrible? Isn't that just so, that just doesn't work? And I think the answer I gave them was that there are parts of, there's always silver lining, right? there were so many, when we told all these stories, there are so many components of the things that I think about and can apply to my own life. And then I can say, oh wow, it's a miracle that happened. The twin scene is my favorite thing. Wow, that's crazy that happened. And learning about that part, I think, is why telling these stories is so interesting and what elevates it. And I think that's what my peers have learned.
So the first few times they were asking me, what are you doing over there? What theater? Okay. And it was hard to tell because we weren't doing actually the theater part yet. We were just getting to know each other. And I was like, I don't know, we will see. But I think it's gonna be fun. And it was fun.
I think a lot of them thought it was really cool because I go to a predominantly Orthodox school, so we all have ancestors who were in the Holocaust, so they all thought it was really interesting that we were doing this and actually talking to survivors themselves. And I think also a lot of our friends are in the audience, so if you wanted to ask them, you could.
We have a question here.
So I think we've all had this experience where even when we tell a story, we tell it differently each time, and I'm sure that in the multi-month process that you went through, you heard these stories told in different ways. How do you get to the truth, right? How do you know? So we're all talking about sort of these stories, right? There is some essential truth to them, but I'm sure I've heard some of these stories, they change, right? How do you deal with that?
I'm sure I think the truth be okay, the first time we saw these stories, it was in sir?
Is there an answer to that? Would anyone like to answer the question?
Yeah, I'll answer. Every time the adults told their stories, there was a new layer that was unraveled, and all these stories are so complicated, and there's so much emotion wrapped in with that truth. So I don't think to any of these stories there's one way to tell it or truly a truthful way of it. And we got to hear these adults' truths, and I'm sure there's so many other ways to tell it, but for us it was nice to hear how our adults saw it, and that was their truth, and we got to see their truth, and that was really nice.
We have a comment from up top.
This is for the kids and the adults. How did you all find Witness Theater? How did you come to be here?
Probably the funniest thing is that I actually found out about Witness Theater in a Panera in rural Jersey. Not lying to you, I read my email and it was in the school bulletin. It was oh, Witness Theater. And I was I told my parents, I was does this sound interesting? I don't know if this is cool or not. And I ended up signing up for the interview, and next thing you know, I'm joining this incredible, family of people. So that's my story.
So at the end of a really long English lesson, our teacher was like, oh yeah, there's this Witness Theater project, and she gave us some flyers and put them on the desk, and I was like, oh yeah, sounds fun, let's do it.
I think we have time for one more question or one more comment.
Anybody? Last one.
Yeah, we're just going to give you the mic.
We'll give two more comments.
I just want to say I think it's incredibly brave, and I'm very grateful that you shared your story with all of us.
I think Phoebe, that's my daughter, asked a good question of how the kids found out about it, but how did you find the adults? Where did they come from? And the background of how you collected the three of you together here tonight.
Max, do you want to answer that one?
I have one.
Let's give you a microphone.
Yeah. I found out about this program through my social worker at Selfhelp. She called me up and asked me if I wanted to participate in the program, and I jumped at it. And that's how I found out.
Susan, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I had participated in other ways of telling the story, and when this opportunity came, I really wanted to take it because even though it was scary, 7 months every single week, my God. But I think I was thinking of my mother and feeling that I think her story needs to be told. And this is where it's very emotional for me that now a lot of people will know what her courage was and what her story was. And that's important for me, for others to know it.
As I remember, someone called me, I guess it was Eben, and he asked me, do you want to meet with young people? I said, yes, I do. Next we met, and I hope I did not disappoint them, and they very impressed.
Okay, thank you so much everybody for joining us, for being our witness. Have a wonderful night.